Padres hot tub, everybody. Greg Elsten, Raphie Cantor. We're going to start with people in the contiguous United States. And then, out in Hawaii, Chris Reed. What's up, boys? Wow.
What's up is the dew point in this basement room that I am recording in, and my spirits, gentlemen, because I'm back talking Padres baseball with you.
Ish. Yeah. First off, history being made. First ever Padres hot tub being recorded in both Hawaii and California. So very, very exciting there. Second off, first of multiple Padres hot tubs this week. I'm telling you, because the Padres are going to hire their manager. Probably they've done it when you've clicked play on this podcast. Obnoxiously, they've dragged this out.
They've probably already done it, and people know, right? Like, that's where I'm landing.
Yes, it's done. When are they going to announce it? It would be hilarious if it wasn't done.
If they just still, there's 3 pictures on the board, and he's just, lists pros and cons beneath each one.
He's the only guy who looked at last week as an opportunity. Like, finally, I've got more time to really noodle on this. let me add a couple more candidates to the whiteboard. Let me see what I can really think about. Probably it's done, and probably we're just getting dragged along. And why didn't they announce it today?
Tinfoil hat corner. It's because you guys know the concept of a Friday news dump. Where you just you put unfavorable news on a Friday so that people go into their weekend and they don't see it. I think we're gonna have a Thanksgiving manager dump because they're hiring Flaherty. That's my my conspiracy, why we haven't heard at this point. It's because they're hiring Flaherty. They know it's gonna be unpopular, but they're gonna do it at 2 p.m. on Thursday. They're gonna leak it.
Oh my god!
So no one remembers.
Yeah, I was literally going to say the only day that they can't do this is Thursday. Thursday at 2. We're so proud. All of us are in a tryptophan haze, just what? Did the Cowboys win? What happened? Oh, we've got a manager now? Cool. All right. Somebody open up another bottle of wine, please. We need to get to work. If they announce this on Thursday, I'm going to have thoughts.
It's not that's not going to happen. That's I like it as a conspiracy. I like it with the tinfoil hat. There could be moving parts. The club needs to have all its principles in one place, ready to go, aligned for this. It's clearly a new dawn in so many ways, more so than we thought. But still, today was a perfect day for it. We're all ready for just some sort of light on the horizon after a terrible week of being a Padres fan. So I do think it's a bit of a missed opportunity and a tad bit sadistic towards the fan base, maybe.
All right, right now, just so we can all be hilariously wrong, or at least 2 of us, if not all 3, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then we're going to say the name of the next manager of the San Diego
want
Padres,
or think,
who we believe will be the man announced as the manager of the San Diego Padres. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Phil Nevin.
Oh, all 3 of us had different answers.
Wow.
Oh my God. By the way, not who I want, but who I think.
Yeah. So you said Schill.
I said Schill.
Chris, you said Gil.
I said Gil, and you said Phil
Nevin. Benjamin Gil. And I said old Nev. I got old Nev getting the captain's seat.
Who wants to go first?
I'm looking at really newness of it. I'm picturing a perspective switch within the organization, a need for freshness, and trying to rally the community. And I think that Benji is the guy for that. And a guy who can motivate the players, maybe heal them a little bit from this last season with the
heal them a little bit. I like that. I like that.
Heal. So that's where I'm going, and I may be letting my want bleed in a little too strong.
Fair. I don't think you have to explain yourself for Raphie for Mike Shildt. That's got to be the clubhouse favorite.
Well, and I would say for all of the reasons that I don't think they're going to pick Benji Gill. I don't think that AJ Preller wants new voices. I don't think they want a new perspective. Like I think it's like he's a guy, he's in the organization, he is clearly going to be willing to be AJ Preller's lapdog, like, and because he kind of was already, it sounds like. And he has managerial experience, so you can justify it to the to the reporters and to the fan base and everything like that. It's the least intrusive option, and I feel like if they would have fired Preller if they wanted to go in a new direction. So I just think it's going to be Shildt.
And I think that Nevin was the late comer here. I think he was the late horse, and I think that's something that is attractive in some weird way to AJ, that, he's heard Shilt's voice for 2 years. He's heard Phil's voice for a couple days. It's fresh. It's new. It's a different perspective. Phil's going to definitely appeal to AJ from that grinder perspective, from that passion
back
perspective.
Tingler's back, baby.
Scooping, battling, grinding, and not for nothing, I think Phil did a fine job with the Angels, was in an impossible situation, and will be in an impossible situation here.
Yeah.
So, the honest thing I'll say before we do the podcast tomorrow or the next day is that I think any one of these guys is on a 1-year leash. Period. End of story. Because if this team doesn't come together this year, I think everything is getting flushed. And it's going to start with AJ, and it's going to carry right through to the skipper. So I think one of these guys is going to get a maximum 3-year contract, but it could be a 2+1, because that's an easy way to get out if at the end of 24 it's time to get out. And the only kind of manager who's going to take a job like that is somebody who doesn't see a lot of other options for themselves in the game. And I think Mike Shildt 100% fits that. I think Benji Gill, who has not ever had a managerial job with plenty of interviews, feels that way. And after what he dealt with the shit show in Anaheim, I don't think Phil is thinking that he's going to get hired as a manager anytime soon. I think he was figuring he was going to sign up to be a third base coach again, or a bench coach for somebody's staff. And he was praying that his buddy Boch would let him jump onto his staff as a coach, or maybe in Atlanta, go take Ron Washington's job. That would be the best that Phil could do this year. But if Nev's got a shot at a big league job, it's here in San Diego, and probably only here. So that, that level of desperation leads to a type of candidate. And I think we've got exactly that slate. And I don't even involve Flaherty. I don't even know what I would say if Ryan Flaherty was named the manager, other than I don't understand.
I would say woof.
Yeah.
I would say I better see Manny Machado sitting up there at the press conference next to Flaherty, basically implying that like LeBron would be at the unveiling of a coach, and basically saying, this is my guy. And if we're just going to play that game, then that's fine, because they played together, whatever, they're close, etc. But I would want it clear, that there's a damn good reason for it to be Flaherty.
Yeah. I think Benji has put it out there more so than all the rest that he's so hungry for the job. And like you said, the 1-year part of it is a big part of my thinking, Craig, because, 3 weeks ago, I was certain it was going to be Mike Shildt, for the continuity aspect for it, for all those reasons. But, now with last week with Papa Pete gone and the franchise needing blood, I do see AJ doing a crazy Ivan, and Benji being the guy hungry enough to accept the terms.
Well, we'll find out. One of, two of us are wrong, or maybe all three. So very exciting. Tune in next episode to find out just how wrong we were. Couple of very brief housekeeping notes. Best way to support Padres Hot Tub, if you are watching us here on YouTube, if you are listening to the free feed, thank you so much. Thank you. This is Thanksgiving week. Thank you. Every single person who supports us as a regular listener, whether you've never given us $1, we absolutely appreciate you. And even if you plus 15 through every single ad, we still appreciate you and the time that you have given and chosen, to take to listen to our show, week in and week out. And here you are listening to an off-season episode. So you like us. You really do. You like us. So thank you so much. Everybody who chips in a little bit and helps us continue to create this content, thank you. Thank you incredibly. And the way you can do that is patreon.com, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Our opening level is $5 a month. I mean, you literally can't buy a sandwich at 7-Eleven anymore for $5. The egg salad sandwich was like $5.29. It's driving me crazy. But you can get a month of supporting this platform, access to our Discord, which is 100% better place than the other social media templates and platforms that are out there, with high engagement for the things that you are interested with. The chance to have ad-free podcasts, the chance to listen to Banter, our most popular show that's not this show, that we do each and every week. During the season, our Have a Drinks, our group therapies, we record all of those live on Discord. That is exclusive to our patrons, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub.
Oh, guys, something on Twitter. Yeah. Oh,
what?
No, it's just more fascist stuff. Sorry.
Oh, cool. Yeah. But much better on Discord. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Speaking of which, we're planning to have a PHT Patreon holiday party. I'm not sure exactly when and where it's going to be, except that it's going to be December 22nd, 9 p.m. at the Tilt 2 Club, when Tim Capello comes out, oiled up, with the bike chain around his neck, no shirt, with some 501 jeans, and absolutely a tenor saxophone, and an opportunity to play his song, I Still Believe, from the Lost Boys soundtrack, the iconic Lost Boys soundtrack.
If it'll be his digital replica and not the 40 years advanced Tim Capello, I'll sign it. I'll do it right now to live in that beautiful moment.
Chris, you have already signed up, my friend. You and I have already committed to be there.
We're going to be there.
We will be there. Raphie doesn't understand how yet, but he will be there. He's going to be there with a wry look on his face. I'm just going to explain to him to go get a cocktail. And hopefully a lot of our Padres Hot Tub patrons will be there as well. But we may do a different day too. But we're definitely coming out to see Tim Capello, because I can't let this world go by another turn without this happening.
Sometimes fate speaks to you, Craig, and when
Precisely.
Tim Capello shows up in this year, you have to go meet fate.
When I randomly and ironically assign this guy to be the riff of our comeback that never happened, and then he pops up at a place I've been to, Tilt 2 Club, a place I've haunted, a place I've literally sung on the stage that he will sing. I guess he sings, right? Not just plays the sax.
He still believes.
He still believes. So that's December 22nd. Also, the last full Padres Hot Tub. Obviously, everything went sideways last week when Peter Seidler died. But the previous, we talked about our Padres Hot Tub off-season watch parties. We had a vote inside our Discord, and by a 2-to-1 count, Mr. Baseball, which I'm still sure is not going to age well once we open it up. I'm sure we're all going to regret this choice. But Mr. Baseball won as our next Padres Hot Tub patron watch party, which means we're all going to, and we need to pick a date. We need to set a date and time for this, guys. I suggested not be Thursday, to where we will all sit down and click play simultaneously on Mr. Baseball, and then record afterwards, of course, our post-game show. One little thing.
Yeah, one little tiny detail.
One little detail. Mr. Baseball is currently not streaming on any major or minor available streaming platform. Nobody thinks it's good to purchase the streaming rights of Mr. Baseball. However, you can rent it on Amazon. Like you can rent like literally anything on Amazon. You can probably rent it somewhere else too. YouTube or something else. But
Goodwill might have it on its local racks.
I mean, yeah, if you want to go find a VHS tape, probably you could go to Kobe's this weekend and get both the VCR to watch it on, probably Mr. Baseball and 49 others great VHS tapes, and you could probably get the whole thing for $50. But having said that, I just want to make sure that everyone's still okay with the fact that now you're going to have to like give Bezos $3 or $4 in order to make this fantasy come true and watch Mr. Baseball. Otherwise, we could pivot to an equally unsatisfying old baseball,
possibly
movie.
Offensive.
Yeah, potentially just incredibly insensitive culturally.
Any movie made 30 plus years ago set in a different country, you just have to.
Yeah. Especially Tom Selleck Goes East. Like,
oh, Quincy, Jesus.
I'm sure there weren't any bad jokes. There's nothing about, R's and L's and everything else. Who knows? Mr. Baseball, watch party coming, date and time to be set, to be executed probably next week, as long as everyone's okay with paying for the privilege. And I think you do need to pay for the privilege of watching Mr. Baseball.
Punish yourself.
And it's not included in your $5 membership, unfortunately. You're gonna have to open up that vein yourself. Anyways, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub for all of this fun. Okay, as mentioned, we left a lot on the table last week because Peter Seidler died. We did not do a live video show. We did not do what we did was a live show on our Discord with our patrons. And if you have not heard that, I invite you to go back and check it out. Again, there's no video of it, but go back and listen to the show. R.I.P. Peter Seidler. There was a lot of heartfelt stuff that was said on there. I think there was a lot of powerful stuff said on there by our patrons. I thought it was personally a really needed thing that night to talk through what happened. I think we were very respectful that night as well and didn't tread into a number of topics that we will inevitably walk through in the days, weeks, and months and years to come, because Peter Seidler is no longer here, but the Padres are still here. And somebody has to run the Padres. Someone has to be the control person for the Padres. And right now, the control person for the Padres is Eric Kutsenda.
From is it Kut or Kut? Kutsenda or Kutsenda?
Well,
my reading is Kutsenda.
Let's go with it because that's 2 out of 3.
I haven't heard that.
I thought I heard Kutsenda, but
I've never heard of him in my life.
Kutsenda.
Yeah, either works. Tomato.
Kutsenda.
If you want to do the like Kutsenda pun, you have to go with the hard K.
Yeah. Kutsenda. Look, this is a guy that has literally nothing to do with baseball or sports at all. At all. This is a co-owner, runner of the Seidler Equity Group. Somebody put a great recommendation in our Discord over the weekend of Freakonomics Radio. Their latest episode talked about private equity and kind of how it works. I'll recommend it here on the show. It was a good episode. I listened to it. It gave me a lot of information that I didn't know before. Not where I'm going to find sports excellence, boys. I will tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look to anybody in the world of private equity to figure out how to revitalize my sports franchise. I'm frankly pretty surprised that Peter Seidler came out of that world. And I almost kind of have to feel that his deep, deep, deep philanthropy in part was evening the books, so to speak, of working in that world, which quite often takes businesses, kind of fattens them like ducks for foie gras, and then watches them fail and recoups the profits on the margins on the way, as a lot of people get crushed. It's a pretty dismal tale when you look at what happens. And also the size and scope and creep of private equity is pretty amazing. Nonetheless, here's the guy. He's not going to be the guy. We have to hope and pray that he's not going to be the guy. But he's the interim guy. He's the custodian. He's the steward of the club. And it appears now that he probably has been for a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, probably since that statement got put out, right? Because the Padres don't release that you're not going to see Peter Seidler around the building statement without him not having been around the building. Like, it's kind of a last resort, right? Like, no organization wants to admit that their leadership is, not crippled, but hobbled.
Indeed. Peter Seidler said that previously in public comment that he wanted the team to remain in his family. There's been some reporting that indicates that remains true. And the Padres are going to have to make an announcement as to who is going to become the control person of the San Diego Padres. They can't just sit on Kutsenda forever. And when they do, MLB has leverage that they haven't had over the Padres for a while. Because ever since Peter Seidler was voted in and agreed upon by MLB's vote owners as the control person of the Padres, he has irritated some people in MLB, and he inflated the Padres' debt-to-service ratio to a point that they already had talks about how they're going to get into compliance. I only bring that up to say if, crazy billionaire played by Pauly Shore in the movie that we're writing, kited in and announced his intention to run and purchase and control the Padres, MLB could say, F that. You need to get into compliance. They have control right now that they haven't had before.
Sure. And we know that, I don't know what percentage of Major League Baseball owners, but a sizable amount of them have been doing everything they can leading up to Peter Seidler's death to make him look foolish and to make his actions, trying to compete, God forbid, as a billionaire, God forbid he spend a little bit of his own money just trying to win something. They've been trying to make that look foolish and, against how the game should be. I was kind of upset this week, Craig, by, you mentioned that you knew Bob Nightingale back when, but he published a friggin' article carrying those owners water about how sad they were and how awful it was for the game that Peter Seidler was passed. All the while, they just will continue operating as they always have, dicking over their fans and lining their pockets. I do think that it's pretty rare for MLB to say no to somebody, especially if it's going to have the Seidler name on them. The team's gone into a trust. His ownership has gone into a trust. That's a black box. We don't get to see what it is or the terms of it. But he has said it's going to be in his family. So if somebody with a strong enough attachment to the Seidler family is named as the principal, I don't think they're going to build up against that. But he's going to face headwinds, or she. Could be his wife. They're going to face headwinds as soon as they enter into that club.
I was curious why it became Kutsenda and not Peter's brother Robert, who is also a co-founder, is co-equal in the Seidler Equity Partners with them. I don't know if it's a proximity thing, if they're just in different places or something like that. There has to be a specific reason as to why that wasn't the case, because I would have thought that would have been the kind of logical next step, given the fact that there's so much emphasis on the team is staying within the Seidler family, But I have to imagine also there might be plans for someday in the distant future, Peter's daughters to potentially take over, and this to become their team one day. So I'm sure that all of that is being worked out in the near term. I think one thing that was interesting about Kutsenda that Dennis Lin published an article talking about how he was. He joined Seidler Equity Partners in 1999. So, he's worked with Peter Seidler for a quarter century at least. And he says he has degrees from the University of Illinois and DePaul. And I was on his LinkedIn page, and he has a master's in taxation from DePaul University. So not only is he a certified public accountant, which makes me worried, because I'm like, you're gonna be looking under the hood and being like, where's all this money really going? That's number one.
Yep.
Number two, taxation. We better never be like a $500,000 over the CBT again. That's all I'm saying. If this guy's gonna be in charge,
There won't be it wasn't Adam Frazier, but
it was Marisnik. It was Jake Marisnik.
Yeah. Well, the thing that made the Seidler Equity Group hum was that Kutsenda had the master's in taxation, and Peter Seidler had a master's in representation. So it all worked out. No taxation without representation.
Oh my God.
Let's go.
We're doing civics humor, guys. There's no manager. What do you want us to do? Like, we don't have anything to talk about.
Like, fuck. Oh my God. Yeah. So this is an awkward time. I remember very vividly in 2003 when the Padres introduced their new team president at the time when John Moores was hemorrhaging money and sunk in the Peregrine scandal and everything else. And Ben and I got into a cubicle at the Clear Channel corporate office to interview Bob Visas, straight up business dude from JMI somewhere, something, and the new president of the San Diego Padres. And we talked to him for 6 or 8 minutes, and we ended the interview, and we both looked at each other and just went, oh, God. Oh, no. Oh. And, I mean, obviously, it was terrible.
Hey, they won the division very soon after that, so you know.
And he was gone.
Respect.
And he was gone. He was gone. He was there for a year. And I think Larry Anderson took over again after that. I forget. Or when did Alderson check it? Not 04.
I just want to remind you guys,
maybe it was Alderson who was next
Papa
in.
Pete had a lot of fairly cryptic quotes, in the past year and a half, talking about you can't take it with you. One of those was that he intends to speak from the grave. Like, There's nothing more cryptic than that. And to have his most trusted business partner step into his shoes, in the interim, keyword, it doesn't fill me with panic or dread. I'm trying not to get too into the guy's personal life because I don't think I would enjoy talking with him at a party based on what I know about him so far. Marathon runner, taxation, Illinois. It's all not my territory. But the fact is that this was somewhat foreseen. Our previous point. When was the known of how gravely ill Peter Seidler was? It seems like it's been a fair amount. That means planning. That means conversations that we won't be privy to. And his first statement was solid, that we want to win. If the Padres have an ownership, have a chairman, have leadership that want to win and are trying to be in it every year, that's all I can ask.
Well, you brought it up. I just want to mention it because literally since last Tuesday, it's been the number one thing about this that was on my mind. And I didn't want to bring it up last week, but it's a week later. And, we've talked before about known knowns and the whole Donald Rumsfeld, quartet, which ends with unknown unknowns, the things that you don't know. And this last week, something moved out of that territory. We learned about an unknown unknown, and it became a known unknown, which is when did Peter Seidler know? When did he know? Did he know last September? Had he been told last September 12 to 15 months, 12 to 16 months? We won't know. We'll never know. They haven't even revealed his cause of death. The family wants to be that private.
Yeah, we're pointed to say that they won't be saying it.
Right. They're not going to tell us. We're not going to find out. It's potential. Somebody knows. Somebody knows. But when did Peter Seidler know? Because I'm very tempted. I think the proper word is I am very tempted to apply a filter to a number of decisions that were made last offseason.
Yeah.
The suddenly almost spastic buying spree of we're going to overpay for Trey Turner. We're going to overpay for Aaron Judge. We're going to overpay for Xander Bogaerts. We're going to give Jake Cronenworth a contract he in no measure needs, from a baseball standpoint, like a contract that makes no sense from a baseball standpoint, but makes a ton of sense if someone just experienced what he realizes might be the best thing that he'll experience. And this is the guy who did it. And he wants to make sure that this guy's okay. And that this guy's taken care of for the rest of his life and his family's taken care of for the rest of his life. Like, that makes a lot. I'm always trying to put a logical filter on things, right? I'm always trying to make things make sense. It's driven me crazy my whole life. I'm 51, but this is how my mind works. I take all of these things that happen and I always put it through the rubric of, does it make sense? Why does it make sense? How does it make sense? And the things that happened in the offseason, I think a lot of us went through the euphoria of it. It happened. Who cares why it happened? It happened. And then it was like, okay, well, now we're dealing with the aftermath of it. It's like, well, why did that happen? And maybe that's why it happened. We're never going to know, but I'm tempted to think maybe that's why some of the decisions were made this last offseason.
I mean, flying Aaron Judge to the winter meetings on a private plane in a last-ditch effort to secure the best home run hitter, not named Shohei Ohtani. Well, I mean, best home run hitter. He hits more than him. So, like, that was the most bonkers thing in last year's offseason. And under the guise of knowing that your clock is running, does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think the Cronenworth contract in particular, Craig, is one that that was, I think the reporting around that even contemporaneously was this was a Peter Seidler driven move. And I think that makes a lot of sense to say, hey, you gave me the greatest moment of my life potentially. And I just want to see that you're taken care of in a way that, that doesn't make sense from a baseball standpoint, but I think again, if that's the context, then the deal makes sense and is kind of like, hey, let's do this in a fair. He didn't give Cronenworth $300 million. Like he was just like, hey, this makes sense sort of for everyone, and it's an interesting thing to think about, Craig.
Even the interview with AC in the middle of the year, why would he think of anything but a positive outcome if this is the last outcome? Right? Anytime you're all in any hand, even if you've got, 2-8 against pocket kings, you're hoping it rolls out 3-4-5 on the flop, and then you've got a bunch of chances. There's that feeling when there's desperation at the back of it. And there's also, hey, I'm going to give out 10-year contracts. I won't be here to see the end of it. Good luck. I don't want to go 100 miles down that road. It's just it's something that's always going to be on my mind, and we'll never really know. We'll never really know the answer. The last thing I wanted to put in this part of the show, did you guys see the Jay Paris quote that kind of made the rounds on social?
It was a little video.
Yeah, 2-minute video. It was tremendous. I recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it. If you just go to X.
By the way,
I'll link it in the show notes. So scroll down and you can see it.
And it sounded a lot like you, Craig, last week in our show. Like there were parallels.
No, I mean, for sure. And look, you guys too, right? And Ben and Woods too. Like a lot of people have brought this up. I brought it up on Ben and Woods last Friday too. But I thought Jay Paris just said it really well. Jay's tremendous. I love Jay. I got so much respect for him. But the last part of it is just the thing that needs to be the tagline for this team going forward, which is last year you played for his money. This year you need to play for his spirit. This year you need to play for what it means and what it meant to be Peter Seidler, not collect that paycheck, fall down 2-0, phone in the rest of the game. That's okay. We'll win 14 of 16 at the end of the year. Still irritates me. Now that we're separated from it, I wish we had lost 14 of 16 at the end of the year. Like, just 82-80 is an unfair cover for everyone. Well, we had a winning season. One of the only winning seasons in Padres history.
It's the cold hand.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It is. It is, and it was, and we knew it was coming, and it came. But nonetheless, like, it's false cover for a lot of people's shit year. That now, here's another thing we didn't talk about last week as we start to transition. The Padres must be, mark this, and like, are the Padres the single most decorated disappointment in baseball history? I'm honestly curious. Has there ever been a team that did not make the playoffs, won 82 games, and had the Cy Young Award winner, a Gold Glover, another Gold Glover, one of them a Platinum Glover, a Silver Slugger, 6th in the MVP voting for the guy who was the Silver Slugger, Juan Soto?
How many guys got MVP votes, period? 4?
4 different guys get MVP votes, and the team didn't win shit. The team hammered Oakland, Colorado, and the White Sox down the stretch, pummeled them to get to 82-80. And they've got to be the most decorated disappointment. Peter Seidler dying just stamped it for all time. The most disappointing season in Padres history by a billion, zillion, gazillion miles is 2023. But we've got to be the most decorated failure of all time.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on.
I'm just thinking about the fact that it's cruel. Like, it's kind of like you almost have to laugh about it in a way because it's so cruel. Like, that this miserable, horrible season happens and then the fucking owner dies. Like, it's horrible.
The beloved owner.
Beloved. Like, you couldn't, like, I think probably once a week about the Menzie tweet that's like the number one rule of Padres baseball is that there's always a deeper bottom.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I like that wasn't on my bingo card, guys. Like, this season. So
I know.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to the baseball stuff that's happened in the last week. All of which feels actuarial. All of which feels like an accountant had a good solid look at it and looked at some spreadsheets and figured out what could be some cost-effective ways to move the San Diego Padres. God, I'm scared of the future. I'm so sorry. I am. I had a vision of where this franchise was going, and it involved 2024 being the most critical all-in year of all time. And now I'm wondering if we might be take a strategic step back, watch the Dodgers spend 2 years with Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, and everyone else at the top of their order, take our licks, recoup our margins, get our taxation properly under control, and then take a measured step forward in 2027. Like, is this our future? We lost our dreamer, man. We replaced a dreamer with a fucking accountant.
Okay. I have potentially something that will make you feel better, Craig, which is that if you look at all of the moves that happened in the last few days, which really quickly, the Padres non-tendered Austin Nola and Tim Hill and Jose Espada and Taylor. How is it pronounced? Colway. I would not have said that. Okay. Colway.
Go away, Colway.
Yeah. And they also traded Scott Barlow to the Guardians for Enyel De Los Santos. Those are all smart moves. Like,
sure.
So like, I know that they're technically like monetary retreats, but like those are things that the team should have been doing regardless. And specifically the Barlow trade. You guys remember in The Big Short, there's before he ever came, when Kendall Roy was just a twinkle in Jesse Armstrong's eye, Jeremy Strong played some guy named Vinny something in the Big Short, and he's like chewing gum constantly, whatever. And he looks at Ryan Gosling's character and says, "How are you fucking us? Like, we will do this deal, but tell me how you're fucking us." And I'm looking at the Guardians, and I'm like, "How are you fucking us? Like, I don't get this deal. Like, basically, you traded us younger and potentially cheaper Scott Barlow for less money. Like, I don't get the Guardian side of this deal. I mean, it's clear that the Cleveland is betting that Barlow's going to be Barlow, that like he's going to return back to it.
They've had a really close look at him for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Being in the division. And they're essentially saying, okay, like, we're the Guardians. We, take pitchers and we from nothing, from the garbage heap, and we turn them into something. And we know that Barlow somewhere in there is a dominant closer, so we'll take him. But that's kind of exactly what they did with De Los Santos. De Los Santos was on the Phillies and Pittsburgh and was a replacement level guy, and he comes to Cleveland, then he becomes an effective reliever, and Cleveland has him for no money, and they just gave him up. So, this was kind of a head scratch. I mean, like, sure, yeah, we'll take him. Like, I don't think that Barlow was, in anyone's imagination, anything more than the seventh inning guy for the Padres in 2024.
Sure.
Would you have him as the setup guy instead?
Potentially. I mean, I think okay, before I get to that point, if we just install Suarez as the closer,
which he's getting paid to do,
and don't add anyone else for the purpose of the discussion, who else would be the eighth inning guy other than Barlow?
Steven Wilson.
Okay.
Drew Pomeranz.
Gone. Not our problem anymore.
The
Eric
one
Hosmer,
argument
we're still paying
I would maybe make the argument that if you put a lot of faith in Tom Cosgrove, that having a lefty to come up before you're right, like, what are you going to have, a righty power pitcher to righty power pitcher to righty power pitcher? Like, you probably want Cosgrove's doggy door slider in there at some point, So that would maybe be, but yes, point taken. I could see Barlow could have been in that discussion. Absolutely.
Yeah. And when they traded for Barlow, this could have been part of the plan, Craig. I've always thought 2023 was the all-in year because you had Snell and Hader on expiring contracts, right, and those guys were unlikely to come back. I've always viewed 2024 as like your plan to compete this year is cobbling together a pitching staff and having Juan Soto on the team with Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr., and that group of guys. Like, that's how I see them competing in this year. And then, of course, they signed Suarez because they had him light up 2022. And the relievers like that are a tough commodity to find. So they locked him up. And that was the plan for this year. And 2025 gets way more confusing than that. So, like, I thought last year was the all-in year. I think this year has been kind of like this is going to be the template on which we see the San Diego Padres trying to compete year in and year out. And that's the uncertainty and we're swimming in.
Very, very, very fair. Enyel De Los Santos the last 2 years has been a right-handed specialist. Scott Barlow for his career has generally been a right-handed specialist. To answer your question, Raphie, the Guardians make the trade based on the save stat. That's it. They make the trade because the kids closed games in the ninth in the past. And, Klaus had some injuries at the end of the year, didn't he? He was fairly ineffective compared to previous years. Not to say that they're looking for a replacement, but you always need an option. And I think it's very easy to convince anybody, manager, GM, etc., that a kid like Barlow, who's got closing experience and then came to the Padres and pitched pretty darn well, now he's got that thing. You can say, well, yeah, you could pitch him in the seventh, you could pitch him in the ninth, you could pitch him in the eighth. He's got the slider, he's got the fastball, he's got that dog in him because he has saved games. So therefore, you can pay him $7 million. the Guardians paying him $7 million. That's surprising. Could they flip him in a trade? Possibly. But us getting De Los Santos, that's fine. If we're going to use De Los Santos the way that you would expect him to be used, great. And let's be honest, Ruben Niebla is Darren Balsley. Darren Balsley is Ruben Niebla. We have once again found our mad professor of pitching that we're going to throw every project and every one pitch specialist at and go, Ruben can fix him. Ruben, let Niebla get his hands on that clay. Let him sink in Peoria. Figure out, De Los Santos, you need to throw the slider 60% of the time to lefties. And then next thing you know, De Los Santos has a 1.4 ERA, next season. We've now got that thing. It's that beautiful thing that we had for 2 decades in San Diego, and we've got it again. We've got a mad genius that we assume every single castaway he can improve by a pip and a half and therefore become relevant and effective once again in the meta.
Yeah. We're going to see if they fucked us, going back to Jeremy Strong. We're just going to have to see this guy in spring training because otherwise, if you just go by the back of the 2023 baseball card, what Barlow did and what De Los Santos did, it feels like a clear dub for the Padres. And that's not quite how trades always work out.
True. Briefly, Trent Grisham's still here. He was tendered.
I told you guys he always would be. This was nonsense. I hated this talking point.
Trent Grisham's probably going to be traded. I'm looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to this. I got to be honest. I'm looking forward to this.
We're going to drink. We're going to drink on that day. Yeah. Quick, all impromptu. Cheers to Trent Grisham.
America's greatest hitter is going to move on. I really, truly thought this move was a year late. And I said will be. I think this move will be a year late. I think that Trent Grisham off of his playoff combined with his Gold Glove, it was the perfect time to trade him to somebody who wanted to dream and speculate on Trent Grisham with one more year of control, one more year of affordability. Instead, Trent went out and confirmed every bias last year. He's a pretty darn good outfielder. He's fucking clueless at the plate. Why is that clue going to come later? I mean, maybe it will. Maybe one day he'll get a clue, but he doesn't have it. And I don't want to watch him anymore. He's my number one guy to get off this team this year. Number one on the list to I don't want to see him play for us anymore.
Sure, now that the non-tenders are in. But I think it's pretty clear what the variable was. And that was, can Fernando Tatis Jr. play outfield? And he proved with 7 exclamation points that he fucking can, man. He's a platinum glove outfielder, the best in the business. So I know there's a quote about him liking right field and thinking it's great. He also said at the beginning of last year he wants to be the center fielder. And I think that's the more honest, less diplomatic Tatis Jr., and he proved he can friggin' do it. It may still have some growing pains like he did in right fielder, but the Padres know he can play it. And, Trent is Trent. I do think that he's going to have better seasons and he's going to have bad seasons. I don't think he'll ever get to Cody Bellinger, but in a market where you have Cody Bellinger and then nobody else, his value is pretty darn good.
Yeah. And speaking of the bullpen, I think that Trent Grisham could fetch us like a pretty decent contributor in the bullpen, which I suspect is where that trade effort is going to be made. Certainly on the pitching side, I don't know how many decent starters, would come back for Trent Grisham, but a bullpen arm, I could totally see it for a team that needs some defensive help in center field.
I agree. Yeah. And I look forward to that podcast. Brandon Woodruff was non-tendered by the Brewers. The Brewers are tearing down to the studs. That's interesting. And I would say that I would have said prior to Peter Seidler dying that there was a 85% chance he'd be a Padre on a 2-year Mike Clevenger, who was the other guy? Richards, prove it deal.
Yeah.
Pitch for us hurt for a year and then come back and we'll get that 1 year of value as you prove it to get back to market. I don't know if we can even afford to do that this year.
Well, we need the help this year is the issue. Like, we need to be spending money on 2024.
So I think Brandon Woodruff will be a Met. I think he'll just get stashed in Steve Cohen's cabinet.
Yeah, they have some depth there that it's okay to not have a guy for a year and then all of a sudden, boom, he's a 3 the next year. Especially after what they've done with their with Scherzer and Verlander.
Which brings us lastly to the moves that have happened so far. And for a team that's trying to play a less economically gonzo form of off-season baseball, all of the early results are super negative for the San Diego Padres, like super, super bad. Austin Nola just signed a stupid contract. I mean, Austin Nola, who really wasn't that good this year.
I think you mean Aaron Nola, right?
Aaron Nola. I wrote Nola. Austin in the notes. You can go back and see. I wrote Austin. Aaron, if Austin Nola signed a stupid deal, it was like at his at his timeshare.
Yeah, that would be the funniest thing ever if someone accidentally signed Austin Nola to a 7-year, $172 million contract.
He just shows up and goes, "My nose is so much better." I think you made a wise investment, friend. Aaron Nola, thank you. I'm going to rewrite that in the notes. Anyways, we know the pitching Nola, the Phillies pitcher, the brother, the good one, but really wasn't very good this year. 7 years, $172 million. That's a silly amount of money for a pitcher. 7 years for a pitcher in his 30s. Like that deal, I'm not even kidding. Next year, Aaron Nola could have a 5.5 ERA in June, and people could be talking about, like, do we really want this guy in our rotation? We're trying to win. And you've got 6 more years after that, friend. Like, good luck, Phillies. That's a shit deal. I'm actually I think one of the subtle ways the Padres are going to gain this offseason is by other teams making big ass mistakes in the market that they won't be allowed to make this year with the handcuffs on. 7-172 for Aaron Nola. 4 years from now, he might be a reliever.
I think that's exaggerating it a little bit, but to emphasize your point, he does that's the 4th highest contract in Major League Baseball right now, behind Garrett Cole, behind Steven Strasburg, and behind Jacob deGrom. It won't be for long because Blake Snell's going to get more, and Matsumoto's probably going to get. Yamamoto. Well, shit.
Yamamoto, yeah, you had it.
Yamamoto, because it's what's his first name?
Yoshinobu.
Oh my gosh. Yamamoto's going to get more. Matsumoto's an Iron Chef. I hope he gets paid just as much.
He was really good.
He's really great. But yeah, it's a huge contract for Aaron Nola, who probably is not the 4th best pitcher in baseball.
I'm going to take a counter and just say I think that this contract was appropriate, and I would say even there's an argument that he could have potentially gotten more. The discourse online in the corners of the internet that I'm on is largely like, hey, this wasn't that bad of a contract. I think there's people expected him to sign for maybe like 6-172, and they got an extra year in there. So if you think about it on a average annual value basis, it's $24 million. So like 3 WAR a year for it to pay off. The last 3 seasons he's gotten 4.4, 6.3, 3.9, and he just needs 3. If he pays for a lot of that in the front end of the contract, it's I don't think it was as egregious as it's currently being talked about on the show.
And ERA is an unfair stat to use for a pitcher pitching in Citizens Bank Park.
He got absolutely screwed by. He plays in front of one of the worst defenses in baseball. His left on base percentage was 66.4%. That's just sequencing and bad defense. You know what I mean? Like, so That contributed to his high ERA. His FIP was much closer down to 4.03. So I don't know. I think it was probably a fair contract, Craig.
Okay, and this is the last counterpoint I'll make, and we'll move on. I knew you were going to defend this, Raphie, because FIP loves Aaron Nola. His FIP is under his ERA over and over again. Why is that? This is very simple. Let's walk the road together. Why is his FIP below? Fielding independent pitching. This is removing the fielding and the ballpark from the numbers. However, Aaron Nola will continue to pitch in that ballpark. And he will continue to pitch in front of that defense. So FIP is beautiful to say, yes, if you put him in a different situation in front of a different defense in a different ballpark, he would be a different pitcher. Sure, but he's not going to do that. He's going to be in the same ballpark in front of the same aging fielders that are out there. He's still going to have Turner. He's still going to have Harper. He's still going to have Castellanos. He's still going to have Schwarber out there. And he's going to age in the bandbox. So that's where I'm willing to go, yeah, okay, that's cool. But to stay in Philadelphia, he's in the exact same pressure cooker year after year as he gets older and his stuff gets worse.
But all the alternatives, we're going to get to my point in our fourth bullet point in this conversation. Are there going to be worse deals made this offseason? I think yes.
Probably yes.
And just for reference, Aaron Nola has a career home runs per 9 rate of 1.07. Last year it was 1.49. He got absolutely lit up. And what does FIP take into account? Home runs.
Variance.
And so that is what drove up his home run rate, or his FIP last year was not, obviously he's playing in front of a bad defense, but he would have had if he had his career home run rate last year, he would have been unbelievable. So I suspect that this will be an okay, fair, it feels like both sides are kind of getting screwed equally, and that's what makes it a good deal contract. All
of that makes sense. I think the bigger point I would drive at, while I can play with these nits and pick at FIP, and that was kind of fun. Pitchers are getting gigantic contracts that are probably going to be bad for the club this year. And Nola is the first one out of the gate, but Ronaldo Lopez, was he even good at all?
I thought he was a middle relief guy.
3 years, $30 million. The same Braves who signed Ronaldo Lopez traded 5 dudes that they were going to cut for Aaron Bummer, who people still think he's another one of he's a FIP darling, and people think is stuff plus and everything, but Aaron Bummer hasn't pitched well, but we'll see. Yoshinobu Yamamoto posted yesterday, and now I heard Buster Olney on his show talking about it today as I was driving home from work. The Mets, the Yankees, and the Dodgers all want Yamamoto. Remember those cute minutes in our Discord where we were like, well, Yamamoto could be the good pivot move that we make for the sensible contract that we could. No, he's going to get, they're talking about $200 million for a guy who's never pitched in the big leagues. And that brings you to Blake Snell. The very same powers that would lead Raphie to like Aaron Nola, or right. The one thing that you can kind of almost count on at this point in analytics in baseball is that it leads to a level of groupthink. And that groupthink is bad for Blake Snell, because all the stuff that we talked about all year and for 3 years about Blake Snell is now being visited statistically upon every analyst who is looking at things. Kylie McDaniel, who works for ESPN, today put out his list of 3 best investments and 3 biggest avoidance contracts. And number 1 on his list was Blake Snell for all the stuff. He outperformed his metrics. He has averaged, he's only exceeded 130 innings twice in his career. His pitches per inning, every single thing that we talked about when I remember on this show back in June going I look forward to someone else paying for Blake Snell next year, before he then rattled off a Bob Gibson stretch of 19 earned runs in 23 starts, ridiculously. But everyone looks at that and goes, well, like back in the day, Blake Snell would have been set, like Tom House would be waiting with $250 million. But nowadays, every single quant walks out and goes to the owner in the GM, goes, this can't possibly last. Blake Snell is not useful. And so he's going to become like the backup plan for someone who misses on Yamamoto and misses on someone else and misses on a trade. And in a different universe, I would introduce this in the topic of, can he find his way back to the Padres thanks to the rest of the world negatively evaluating him in terms of his future? But I just don't think I don't even think that universe exists.
Yeah. Make of this what you will. But this article written by Kylie McDaniel, who used to be a Fangraphs writer, was a premise that he took from Dave Cameron, of course, formerly of Fangraphs and of the Padres and now of the Mariners. And it was actually the last article that he wrote before he started working for the Padres was in the 2017-2018 offseason, top free agent bombs to avoid signing. And number one on that list was Eric Hosmer. And then what did the Padres go ahead and do? They signed Eric Hosmer, and we are still paying him today. So on the one hand, that's all the more reason for me to say we should avoid signing Blake Snell. On the other hand, all the more reason for me to believe that we would, in fact, sign him. So that is what I have to say about that.
Or that somebody will. Like, sure, there's
someone will,
but there's renegades, and like I don't think this off-season talking point is going to cost Blake Snell a lot of money. I mean, dude finished the season with 9 consecutive quality starts. There's also the talking point about baseball changing its rules in the coming years to try to get starters on the mound more, because they see in their polls that fans like seeing their starting pitchers more, because they'll do everything they can to not hold their lamest owners accountable for fielding cheap, terrible teams that don't compete. They'll literally bend over backwards to find ways to alter the game in order to avoid making those people pay money for their teams. But there's also 4 or 5 teams that want it now, that want the big guy out there. And Blake Snell showed a level of dominance that's completely rare in this day and age. And on that same podcast, Craig, I heard Hembo advocating that the Yankees trade Garrett Cole, which kind of makes me feel better about our own kind of nihilism and cynicism regarding the Soto trade, that it's infecting other fan bases, It's a mental contagion, and the Yankees kind of have it to a degree now.
Well, we'll talk about Juan Soto and trades many times more this offseason. I guess the last thing I'll say about this is that Kylie McDaniel put Blake Snell in a bucket with 3 different pitchers that would make him and you gasp, which was Rodon, Patrick Corbin, and Robbie Ray. As literally the last 3 stuff over command, age 30, power left-handed starters that hit the market and got big contracts. And every single one of those contracts is a complete and utter nightmare, and was within a year of the signing. And if Blake goes to wherever and just explodes next year and nukes up, none of us will be completely surprised. Quite honestly, though, if he's re-signed with San Diego, I wouldn't see that for him. I would not see that for him. Him just going back to complete nuclear mode. I think he'd come back here, be comfortable, and live out the rest of whatever his career was supposed to be.
The question is if they also sign Gary Sanchez.
Right? He just comes as an addendum, a rider on the deal.
For sure.
My trailer will be stocked with Gary Sanchez. All right, that's Padres hot tub.
Sorry. That's all my prediction is that Sanchez goes where Snell goes.
Fair enough. I just want to close the show because we're going to be right back tomorrow or the next day.
You're right.
Padres hot tub. Hire a fucking manager. Come on, we've got a show to do.